I'm 15 for a moment, caught in between 10 and 20, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. I'm 22 for a moment, she feels better than ever, and we're on fire, making our way back from Mars. And 15, there's still time for you, time to buy and time to lose. 15, there's never a wish better than this, when you only got 100 years to live. The man, but you see I'm of age, a kid on the way, a family on my mind. I'm 45 for a moment, the sea is high and I'm heading into a crisis, chasing the years of my years to live. Half time goes by, suddenly you're wise. Another blink of an eye, 67 is gone. The sun is getting high, we're moving on. I'm 99 for a moment, I'm dying for just another moment, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. And 15, there's still time for you. And 22, I feel her too. And 33, you're on the way. And every day's a new day.
Wasn't that awesome? That's Sean, everyone. Hey, welcome to Mission. My name is Rachel. I hope you guys enjoyed that song. We are just having a little bit of fun with it this morning because we are starting a new series called the Immeasurable Life. So over the next few weeks together, we are going to learn how to get immeasurably more out of this life we've been given. It's going to be awesome. You do not want to miss it. Well, hey, if you are new here, we want you to know you belong here. Mission is a place that is just passionate about being for everyone. So we're thrilled that you're here, and we'd love to meet you. So just outside those doors, we've newly relocated the hub. It's out in the lobby now. You can't miss it. Stop by there. We would just love to meet you. Well, we have an awesome service planned for you guys today, and we're just going to get on with it. Chris and Lauren and the band are going to come out and sing a few more songs, and then Joel is going to come out and kick us off in week 1 of the Immeasurable Life. But first, why don't y'all stand up, shake a hand, and say hello to all those awesome people around you.
conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Yes, worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Sing it out. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Oh, worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. Now you would take my place. Now alone in my sorrow and dead in my sin, lost without hope with no place to begin. Your love made a way to let mercy come in. When death was arrested and my life began, ash was redeemed, only beauty remains. And my orphan heart, it was given a name. My mourning grew quiet, my feet rose to dance. When death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Released from my chains, I'm a prisoner no more. My shame was a ransom he faithfully bore. And he called my death and he called me his friend. Oh, when death was arrested and my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. Oh, your endless love, it's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Oh, yes it does. Savior displayed on a criminal's cross, and darkness rejoiced as though heaven had lost. But then Jesus arose with our freedom in hand. That's when death was arrested, my life began. Oh, that's when death was arrested, my life began. Oh, your grace so free washes over me. You have made me new, now life begins with you. It's your endless love pouring down on us. You have made us new, now life begins with you. Amen. We celebrate that this morning, the love that Jesus had for us, enough to come down, become human with us, and bear the weight of our sins and our shame and our pain for us because he loved us so much. And this morning, today, we celebrate Jesus and we give thanks back to him. And we're going to continue to do that as we give of our tithes and offerings. So you can go ahead and take a seat, and we're going to invite forward our volunteers.
People everywhere are winning big, playing the Monopoly game at McDonald's. Barbara Gray won a Sea-Doo jet boat. Mary Wallingsford won a $2,000 Citibank shopping spree. Kyle McKinnon won a Sega Saturn with a Daytona USA game. Jerry Colombo won a Dodge Viper. And there are two $1 million prizes left. With millions of prizes left, you could be next. So take a break and get a break at McDonald's.
Have you had your break today?
I'm actually not sure why that's funny, but I'm going to go with it. How many of you played the Monopoly game at McDonald's? Just by a show of hands really quick. You're going to have to participate today, so just show of hands. That's so awesome. How many of you remember like when it first started back in the 80s? This game first started in 1987, and Hasbro and McDonald's got together for what was a dream combination, and they launched this game, and many of us lost our minds. Did we not? We losing our minds trying to get these game pieces and trying to get the match of this, and some of you know it was all for naught. As a matter of fact, some of you may not know this, but some of you know that the game was compromised almost from the very beginning. Some of you, did you know this? Have you heard this story? It just resurfaced this last week. The reason most of us have never heard the story is because the first arrest was made and the story broke just weeks before the 9/11 attacks. And after the 9/11 attacks happened, I mean, this was not even really newsworthy, but from the very beginning, McDonald's hired a company called Simon Marketing. And Simon Marketing was hired to promote and organize this game. And their chief of security, a guy named Jerome Jacobson, who was later known as Uncle Jerry for a lot of great reasons. From the very beginning, he was a stickler, and people that knew him, he would search, make people take off their shoes, and he was around for all the printing of all these game pieces, and made sure he stayed with all of the big game pieces, all the way until they got delivered. And he figured out a way to swipe the most important and the biggest prize game pieces in this game from the very beginning. And in fact, as a matter of fact, they got so good at it, he had sort of developed a network of people that what they would do is they would receive these prizes, they would claim these prizes, and he tried to distance these people from himself, but he got some super recruiters, is what he called them, to get all these other people to claim these prizes, and then they got kickbacks on the prizes. They got so good at it that from 1995, this is gonna disappoint some of you, from 1995 to 2000, all of the major prizes that were won in this game were actually won by this ring of scam artists. And we'd all do that together. It was actually kind of fun. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if you noticed in the video, the guy that won the Dodge Viper, Jerry Colombo, he was part of this scam. And these people, a lot of these people that were in these commercials, they were part of this whole scam. In the end, after a 12-year scheme, they had stolen 60 significant game pieces worth $24 million over the course of 12 years. 21 people were indicted on this. And I gotta read you this real quick. When Jerry Jacobson, or Uncle Jerry, when he was arrested, he basically just said, he didn't really have a comment as to why he did this. They kind of wanted to know, how did this all start? And he just said, all I can say is this is the biggest mistake of my life. But there was one of his guys that was known as one of his super recruiters, and there was 4. And this was a guy who had really helped him devise and carry out this scheme. This is what he said about his experience in this. He said, it was just the excitement to have the power. I can make someone a millionaire. It was a game. And I lost. I hate to say it though, but I'd probably do it again for the same reason. To which I thought, you know what, if they hadn't already given him his sentence, that should have just ratcheted up what happened. But here's the point of all this, that there is this desire. There's an insatiable desire in all of us for something. And I would say that it's almost a universal desire. It's a desire and a pursuit in all of us that really shapes and drives our lives. It drives our culture. It's actually the fuel that drives our economy, and it drives our society. And this desire, this universal desire is common to most, if not all of us, and it drives a lot of the decisions we make. In fact, it's caused a lot of people to do some amazing things in life, but it's also led people some of their greatest regrets. In fact, it may have led some of you to your greatest regret, and it's not a secret. It's something that's common to all of us. It's in all of us. In fact, marketers, promoters, business people, retailers, they take advantage of this all the time. It's why Walmart exists. It's why Target, Sam's Club, Costco. It's why all of these things exist. It's why you're always being upsized. You ever notice that? Like, would you like this value size? Would you like this jumbo size? Would you like this king size? For 50 cents more, you can actually get a hot tub size of popcorn that you can jump into and eat yourself out of while you're at the movies. I mean, this all the time. It's like, for a little bit more, you're always being sold on just a little bit more. It's why, some of you have always been wondering this, it's why a small at Starbucks is a tall. It's why a medium is a grande, and it's why a large is a venti, which really actually just means 5. And so it just sounds like more, it sounds bigger. And the reason is, isn't it true, that we all are looking and we all want more? Isn't it true we all have this desire for more? You want more for your money. You want more for your time. You want more for your kids. You want more for your future. You want more happiness. You want more out of your business. You want more income. You want to experience more. Some of you want more house. Some of you want more time off. Some of you just take more time. If we could add a day or two or an hour or two to the day or to the calendar. You're always looking, and we're always driven by this idea of more. See, many of us have seen or experienced or heard about the possibility of more in some category of life. And maybe you saw it in somebody else's life. Or maybe you just observed it in life. Or maybe it was marketed or promoted or advertised to you. Maybe it was an amount of money or a certain lifestyle, or maybe it was a level of influence, a quality of relationship. Maybe it was a deeper sense of purpose or a profound sense of peace. It's not just stuff. And when you measured that more against what you were experiencing in life, the truth is it left you wanting even more. As a matter of fact, when you measured that against your experience, you were sort of dissatisfied with life. So I just want to ask real quick, how many of you would say you have a desire for more? Would you raise your hands real quick? I mean, if you have a desire for more, would you just raise your hands real quick? Okay, if you're not raising your hands, you're not either breathing or not being honest. Because to some degree, it's probably why you're here today. It's probably why you'll get up tomorrow and go to to where you go to work. It's why you're gonna do certain things and sacrifice for your kids or for your spouse or for your family. And today is just an introduction. In fact, for some of you who like a whole bunch of verses, you're gonna wanna come back next week because we're gonna do a whole bunch of verses next week. But today we're just gonna look at one verse. And there's just one idea. I just have one simple question and one simple challenge. But in order to get there, I want you to rewind the tape back in your life. And for some of us, I will say, include myself in this. This is gonna be harder than others. I want you to think back to your childhood. I want you to think back to when you were a kid. I want you to think about what you dreamed of. What were your dreams as a kid? What were the things that when you make believe with your friends, or when you're playing out in the yard? Like, what are the things you dreamed of? What are the things you dreamed of doing, of becoming, of buying, of experiencing? Where were the places you dreamed of going? And who were the people you were hoping to meet one day? I mean, when we were kids, isn't it true? We dreamed all the time. We dreamed about all sorts of things in our childhood. As a matter of fact, a lot of people told us to dream big. You know, the world is your oyster. You should shoot for the stars. You know, you shouldn't limit. And people pushed us, and we dreamed of all sorts of things. Of course, the younger we were, the smaller our dreams were. I remember when our son Talon first came to me, he said, "Dad, I just, one day, I see them all the time, and I want to ride on an airplane." You know, he's really little. I just want to ride an airplane. Little did he know he'd already been on an airplane. He just didn't remember it because he was a baby when riding an airplane. I was like, "You're in luck. You know, we're getting ready to go on this trip." So I told him about it, and that was the worst mistake I made, because every day from then until we went on the trip, "Daddy, is today the day we're going on the airplane?" "No, today is not the day. It's like months from now." "Okay, it's months from now." "Daddy," the next day, "Daddy, is it months from now yet? I mean, we're gonna get on the plane," and then the whole way, we're getting in the car the whole way to the airport. This is when we lived in Atlanta. It was a 40-minute drive the whole way. "Daddy, when do we get to the plane? When do we get to the plane?" We get to the airport. We ride a train, which he loved. We get there, and he's got his face mashed up. I mean, we're gonna get there early. His face mashed up against the window, just looking at the airplane, watching all the airplanes outside, just watching, couldn't wait. We got on. He finally got his seat, his window seat. We push back. We taxi out the runway. They fire up the engines, and we rumble down the runway, and we take off. And it was so fun for me. I didn't look out the window once. I'm watching his face the whole time. And just watching him, watching the thrill of this through his eyes. And we get up in the air, and we're taken away, and we bank, and I could see him sort of grab on. He grabbed on. I could see his eyes get big, and it was just this thrilling moment. And after watching for a few minutes, I just thought, I'm gonna let him enjoy it. I popped my earphones in my ears and laid my head back. And what seemed like a half a second later, he starts pulling on my shirt. Daddy. I said, "Well, tell him, what's wrong?" He said, "How long until we're gonna be there?" I'm like, "You gotta be kidding. We just got on the airplane. You've been waiting months for this, and you're already over it. You're on to the next thing. Daddy, how long are we gonna be there? What are we gonna do when we get there?" It's like, I'm done with this. And the truth is that's sort of what happened. We grew out of some of those dreams. And the good news is we moved out of childhood, and we moved into our teenage years, which is awesome, because with our teenage years came this incredible gift, the gift of knowing absolutely everything. You remember that? And we were all in that stage at one point. We knew everything. We knew what we wanted. We knew how to get it. We knew why our parents were against us. And even sometimes we even understood a little bit, but they were against us in life. We knew everything. And we were like, it was almost, we were like indestructible. Not that there weren't difficult challenges, but we just thought, when we get through this stage, we're gonna show everybody. And then, isn't it true, you got into your 20s, early 20s. You made it through college. You got into your early 20s. And this sort of optimism and idealism really sort of came with your early 20s. And some of you dreamed of making a world a better place, for not just for you, but for everybody. You knew a better way to do relationships, a better way to do business, a better way to do life. And you sort of set out with these dreams of the future. And then life happened. And one day you woke up and you were all grown up. And one of two things happened. The first thing that happened is maybe for some of you, life exceeded your dreams. Like, you realized, I dreamed too small. Like, you got to a place where, and again, it wasn't easy. It came with some bumps and some bruises, but you actually had more opportunity than you thought you'd have. You went more places. Some of you earned more money. Some of you, you accumulated more stuff, or you gained more influence. You experienced more in some category of life than you ever thought or ever dreamed that you would. The interesting thing is it didn't actually fully or finally satisfy you. Even though you experienced or you went beyond your dreams in some category of life, there was some other category, there was some other thing that left you desiring or wanting even more. For others of you, life didn't exceed your dreams. Life actually extinguished your dreams. And you didn't just experience some bumps and bruises. You got some pretty big scars from life. Your late 20s and early 30s and maybe beyond, it came with some significant brokenness. Maybe a broken heart or several broken hearts. Maybe the broken heart of a relationship. Maybe a broken family. Maybe a broken career. Maybe a disaster that you didn't ever see coming. And it's not something you ever dreamed, and it's nothing you'd wish on anybody else. And the truth is some of us have experienced a little bit of both. You've experienced areas of your life where life exceeded what you dreamed, and others of you, it fell way short of what you dreamed. But the truth is for all of us, that still leaves us wanting even more. And it's a desire that doesn't seem to ever really go away. And here's the challenging thing, is for most, if not all of us, this desire for more is something that can either drive you crazy or drive you to do something you later regret. It either drive you crazy or drive you to do something that you never imagined that you would do. And so what do you do with that? How do you manage that? If you've been around church for a while and you're sort of the person that sort of thinks ahead and goes, okay, I wonder what the answer to this is gonna be. And especially if you grew up going to Sunday school, you know the Sunday school answer. The Sunday school answer is, that desire is never gonna be fully and finally satisfied until Jesus returns. And when Jesus returns, he's gonna solve all that. So just wait, just hang on till Jesus gets here. And when Jesus gets here, all the more you want will be satisfied in him, which I believe. And so did the Apostle Paul. It's just that when Paul was dealing with this issue of more, he didn't answer the question that way. In fact, the Apostle Paul gives us a very different answer. He actually offers a very different category. For those of us who life has exceeded our dreams, and for those of us who life has extinguished our dreams, he offers a brand new category. If you have a Bible, we're gonna be in the book of Ephesians. And if you don't have a Bible or a device where you're gonna look that up, I'm gonna put all the verses on the screen. But if you have one, I'd love for you to follow along with us. If you're not familiar with the YouVersion app, you should find that. Download the YouVersion app. It's an incredibly user-friendly version of the Bible that you can use on your phone or on your tablet or whatever. But in the beginning of Ephesians, it's really interesting. The Apostle Paul basically reminds the people he's writing to in Ephesus. We've talked about Ephesus before. It's this incredibly booming port city, industrial city. He reminds them of all that God has done for them. He basically reminds them of all that God did for them in Jesus. And then he does something interesting. He updates them on all these other churches, all these other places where God's done extraordinary things, where the movement they're a part of is moving, like it's continuing to gain ground and gain steam, and it's growing. And then almost as if he knew that they were gonna be wanting more or expecting even more. And maybe even for some of those who thought, this is more than I could possibly imagine, I don't know how much more could happen. The Apostle Paul introduces a brand new category of thinking for all of us. Here's what he says. He says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine. Now, I know some of you have heard this verse many times before, but I want you to reimagine it for the first time. I want you to reread it and rethink through this verse for the first time, because this immeasurably more is even more than you and I dreamed. It's more than we've been asking. It's more than we've been thinking. It's bigger than we've been dreaming, even when we were kids and we didn't know it was possible. The Apostle Paul says, listen, there's even more that's possible out there. And it's even more, and it's way beyond what you're thinking. And the reason he could say that is because everything more you and I can think about is measurable, isn't it? Think about it. Just about everything you dream of or you imagine is measurable. It involves an amount or a square footage or size or a length of time or a greater degree or a new level in the organization. It involves something that you can measure, you can put your arms around. I mean, even for the biggest dreamers in our culture like Elon Musk, I mean, you can measure, you can talk about, when they talk about some of those dreams, it's at least something you can put your arms around. The Apostle Paul goes, no, I'm not talking about your dreams. I'm not talking about what's possible with you. He says now to him, I want you to think about somebody who's beyond you. Not somebody who lives in a finite world and deals with finite resources. I want you to think about the one. I want to expand your thinking that immeasurably more is possible because there is a God who has infinite resources. There's a God who has an infinite amount of time. There's a God who has an infinite amount of energy. He has an infinite amount of connections at his disposal. And here's the thing. The Apostle Paul's careful to say, it's not to you who are able. It's not up to you. It's an invitation to trust God. It's to him who is able. We're gonna turn our attention before he talks about how to live your life or the path to get there. Before he gets into any of that, he says, listen, I want you to think, I want you to turn your attention, turn your hearts, turn your lives, turn your worship, turn what drives you towards a God who's able to do immeasurably more than all you could ask or imagine. Isn't it true, it's just an observation, isn't it true that our ability to achieve often limits our capacity to dream? When you think about your dreams, the truth is our dreams are limited by what we think is possible or what we think is capable. This is why many of us have abandoned a dream. Some of you experienced failure, or there's a level of uncertainty or risk, or there are limited resources or fear. And you gave up on something, or we gave up on something we once believed was possible, something that we were chasing after. Some of you dreamed of owning your own business one day, and then after a few roadblocks or what seemed like a dead end, you gave up. In fact, at this point, you just settle for a good job, a good consistent job that pays well and supports your family. Some of you dreamed of finding that forever someone that, like you, valued being together forever. Some of you, I actually believe people still do this. Some of you have chosen to save yourself for the person you'd spend the rest of your life with. And it doesn't seem like there's many options out there of those people left. And you wonder, was it worth it? Will I ever find them? Some of you dreamed of leaving a lasting legacy, or at least breaking the past, breaking a pattern in your family. And you wanted to break a pattern of divorce or addiction in your family or for your kids or for their future. And then he left or she left, or you got caught up in something, or that habit sort of overtook you. For some of you, you dreamed of taking on a humanitarian cause or crisis. And you didn't want to get caught up in the rat race of living for the almighty dollar and trying to, pursue the American dream. You had dreams of doing something bigger, of leveraging your whole life for something. You realized that the problem was bigger than you thought it was. And the help and the interest of people around you was less than you hoped it would be. And you gave up on that dream. You gave up on the belief that more was possible in that category of life. And oftentimes, when our belief in more dies, our dreams die along with them. But isn't it true every now and then? You taste or you catch a glimpse of more, specifically in that category of life where you dreamed or you were disappointed. For some of you, after a tough stretch in your marriage, you and your wife, you have a good laugh, or you and your husband, there's a moment and you think, I want more of that. Like we used to prioritize things in our marriage that would lead us towards more of that, and it just seems like it's eroded or it's lost or it's past our time. For some of you in your career, you dreamed of working sort of in your skill set with something that made you come alive. And one day you had the opportunity to work in your sweet spot and do something you really believed in, and you thought, I wish I could do more of that. For some of you, you heard somebody talking about their financial future and achieving some of their goals and their dreams. And they were actually gonna achieve some of the things you wished you could achieve in your life and in your future. And you thought, I wish I could experience, I want more for my future. I want that type of more for my future. For some of you, you've recently had the opportunity to give or to serve somebody, not needing anything in return, and you saw the impact, you saw what the experience did, and you just thought, if I could quit my job and do that with all of my time, I would. I wish I could do more of that. And in those moments, here's the truth, we're reminded that more is out there. More is possible because we've seen somebody else experience it. But with that hope of more, as you know, also comes attention. Will I ever get there? Will I ever experience that? Is that even something I should pursue? And the tension sometimes gets so much that it leads some of us to consider doing things we know we shouldn't do. Some of you, maybe even today, you're considering something you know you shouldn't be considering, you shouldn't even be thinking about. But in the climate of the tension you're experiencing, through the perspective of what you're missing out on and what you're not experiencing, you've begun to compromise things that you know just by good judgment, let alone moral character and what you know to be true and what you know to be right. You've begun to consider things. We've all seen this. You've seen it cause somebody to trade in their car for a newer, brighter, shinier, faster one that they could not afford, and they got themselves into trouble. In other cases, you saw somebody trade in their husband or their wife for a younger, hotter, more exciting one that they also could not afford, to be honest with you. But we've all seen this go horribly wrong. And the truth is this tension often causes us to pursue more based on our own ability and our own power, by all means necessary. And that almost never works. I've got thousands of hours of sitting in front of people who've tried to get more on their own by all means necessary. A more that they were missing out on, a more they thought they couldn't live without. Some of them actually achieved that more only to realize that it wasn't immeasurably more. In fact, it was incredibly less than they thought it was going to be. And other people who tried to chase after that more eroded every relationship, and most of the things, lost most of the things that they thought were really important to them in life. And here's the thing, I want to go back to this verse because there's more to it than this. In fact, the Apostle Paul said, he didn't just say, now to him who was able to do immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine. It was almost like if we missed it, he wanted to make sure we didn't, because it's according to something outside of us. It's according to his power that's at work within us. It's something that's outside of us that actually gets placed inside of us, and trusting in the power of God, the one who has infinite resources, placed in you and me. Is how we experience this more. Now, next week, this is in the context of much larger instruction by the Apostle Paul. And if you like a lot of verses, next week, we're gonna unpack a whole bunch of verses to understand how this actually works. How does this power actually work within us and lead us to experience the immeasurably more that every single one of us was designed, was created to experience? It's not by any accident that you feel that way, that you desire more. It's not by any accident that you haven't yet found something that fully and finally satisfies that desire in you, because you were created for even more than is possible just in your own finite abilities. You see, here's the bottom line today, is that more is actually possible because God is able, not because you're able. I know this seems incredibly simple, but if we don't jump over this hurdle, the rest of the series won't make any sense. It won't even matter. If we don't come to the place where we realize that actually more than anything that any of us have experienced is actually possible for us, but it comes by trusting in a God who is able to lead us to immeasurably more, we won't actually experience it. You see, it may not be the more that you're thinking, but God's more is even more. The Apostle Paul says this is beyond what you could ask or imagine, which is what makes it so difficult. It's like, how do I imagine something I can't imagine? You can't. But here's the truth. When you think you know the more that you want, the more that could and should be, the more that can make you happy, and you try to pursue that on your own, as long as you pursue your version of more apart from what God dreams and desires for your life, which is way more than you're dreaming and desiring, immeasurably more will continue to escape you. You will continue to miss out on the immeasurably more that God has for you. Listen, remember, your concept of more is limited by your imagination. It's limited by your comprehension. It's limited by your resources. It's limited by what you can measure. Paul's saying, you can't imagine this kind of more. It's beyond how you've been dreaming. It's in a totally different category of more. About a decade ago, nearly a decade ago, I met a guy through an invitation. I received an invitation. My wife and I received an invitation to a dinner. It was a fundraising dinner. And as you can imagine, as a pastor, I get invited to a lot of these. And we had gotten invited to one of these, and we went because this was a couple that had invested significantly in one of our kids. And so we showed up, and that night I met a guy named Elijah. This is Elijah right here. Elijah is from Uganda. And I met Elijah that night, and he, in this presentation, he began to talk about his story. And Elijah grew up in Uganda, and he grew up as a part of a family. He had 38 siblings. He was part of a family that was a family that was not, his father obviously had more than one wife, and he had a whole bunch of siblings. And at a young age, he actually almost died at age 8. It's because he grew up living on a dirt floor. He slept on a dirt floor every night, had nothing to cover him, and insect infestation caused him to get disease, him and many of his siblings, and he almost died. And it was actually a crisis of that event was a crisis of faith for his mom. And his mom began to learn about God and study about Jesus and began to lead Elijah in that direction. Another interesting fact about Elijah is it wasn't until he was the age of 15 that he owned his own pair of shoes. And it wasn't until 18 that he knew what it was to have a full stomach. And we listened to him that night talk about his journey. He later married a woman named Ruth, and as a young couple, they had an interesting thing happen. They happened to inherit a piece of property through an unlikely set of circumstances. They inherited this piece of property, and they dreamed of moving to that piece of property and sort of starting a new life and forging a better life for themselves and for their kids. And so after having a couple children, they moved this piece of property with their entire life savings, which he said was $10. They moved to this piece of property, and they decided they were going to start life there on that piece of property. And after being there just a short time, they realized that there were a bunch of children. Many of you know the AIDS epidemic, especially a decade ago, was even worse than it is today. And kids began to show up, and in just a short period of time, 2 weeks, there were 188 kids living with them on their property. And they did something really simple. I know this is gonna sound so silly, and it's almost remedial. It's something you'd expect from somebody in a third world country, but they just decided to take the Bible seriously and care for the widows and orphans that were among them. And they just thought, okay, God, these orphans are among us. I mean, you tell us to care for them. And they're right here, they're on our property, and so they got to work. And Ruth started educating them, and Elijah started building mud huts around their property. And they began to farm, and they began to try to feed these kids, but it was rough. Over the next several years, they lost several of the children, and disease sort of plagued them, and they were struggling to keep up and to keep out intruders. And 188 turned into over 300 in just a few months, and they were suddenly dealing with something that they just could not do on their own. And about then, somebody approached Elijah and said, "Hey, I know a group of people that might want to help you. And I want to put you on an airplane, and I want to send you to America. I want to send you to California to meet with a group of people that I think could help you." And so for the first time, a guy who had never been on an airplane in his life boarded a jumbo jet to fly to California. And you and I cannot even imagine the culture shock when he got off the plane at LAX. That night, I listened to him, and it was just emotional even to think back on. I listened to him talk about his experience the first 24 hours when he got off that airplane. He said that he saw and experienced things he didn't even know existed in the world. And the first few hours that he was there on the way to his hotel room to get some rest because he'd been traveling overnight for a long period of time, he just was overcome with the excess, with the waste that in and of itself was immeasurably more than he and his family had ever even imagined for themselves. He got to his hotel room that was the size of his house. And he said for the next 12 hours overnight, he laid on the floor and wept. God, how could this be? This is so unfair. How is it possible that we're struggling just to stay alive, to keep these kids alive, just to get by? How is it possible that this exists in the world? And overnight, Elijah had a crisis of faith. And he began wrestling and wondering and reevaluating everything. He said in the middle of the night, he felt like he was going crazy. And then he said that in the wee hours of the morning, he heard a voice. He said it wasn't an audible voice, but he heard a voice, and it was so clear, and it was It was so distinct that it had to be the God that he had been crying out to all night long. And the voice said something like this. It said, Elijah, you dream for more for the family I gave you. You dream for more for the children I sent you. You dream for more, so much more. You were willing to leave and board a plane and travel halfway around the world to meet with a group of people that could help you do and experience and provide even more for people in your community, in the village that you're in. Here's the thing. I want you to know that the more you've dreamed of is immeasurably less than the more I dream of for you. You see, I brought you here not just to provide more. I'm going to do that for you, for your family. I brought you here because there's a group of people who are settling for immeasurably less. And I brought you to lead them to the more I have for them. It seems like they have immeasurably more than anything you could ever ask or imagine. But here's what I want you to know. They've settled for less than the more I have for them. And I'm going to use you, not just to lead them to more, but to lead them to trust me for immeasurably more in their lives. Our family was one of the families who was there that night in this gathering. And he began to tell a story, and I had sponsored a compassion child before I knew how it worked. My wife and I left that night with 2 photos and 2 packets of 2 children that we've been sponsoring, we've been investing in for nearly a decade. But just weeks after that, I received a video, along with all the other families that came. We received a video of a celebration, and I wasn't expecting this, but this was sort of for accountability, but also for us to share in their joy, to see the celebration that happened when they went back and called the names of the kids who'd been sponsored. Now, in this video, this is gonna bother you because you live in America, and you think everything should be fair and all the kids should be treated, but in this video, you're gonna see kids that are wearing uniforms and kids that aren't, because those are the kids that were sponsored, and so other kids were kids that weren't sponsored yet. And you're gonna see in this video, the amazing thing is you're gonna see some of these kids that weren't even sponsored cheering for kids who were sponsored, even though it wasn't them. And it's extraordinary. And when we first received this video, I can't even tell you how it blessed us. Take a look.
We want to thank God for this, for the newly sponsored children. Hallelujah! Hallelujah!
The truth is that was just, I mean, this guy's one of my heroes. The truth is the video goes on and on. You could watch the whole, I think, 38-minute version of it, but it's extraordinary. And he brought and led a group of people because of his faith to immeasurably more. And the truth is it was even more than that. Because what he doesn't realize is for hundreds, if not thousands of families like mine, immeasurably more than that has even happened. Over the last 10 years, as we've made a small investment each month, that small investment doesn't begin to compare with the immeasurably more we've experienced. because of the conversations we've had with our kids. We first showed them that video as we pray for these kids and as we've contacted these kids and we've kept in touch and watched their progress. And the number of times, even when our kids were little, when our kids they would catch us, they'd be like, you're not gonna waste that. You mean, do you know that Brenda and Ezra, the kids that we're assigned, they don't even have that. They would love to eat that food. You're not gonna waste that, are you? I mean, our kids, even understanding what's important and what's valuable. Today, Pastor Elijah, leads a network of churches and an organization that actually cares for and educates over 2,000 kids. We have a picture. Here's a picture of him with a whole bunch of kids, over 2,000 kids. And he's doing extraordinary things, and that's so inspiring. But here's the thing. Here's what I don't want you to miss today. The thing I want to challenge you with, and there's so much we can learn from that, but here's what I want to challenge you with is, when you think about the more you dream of, do you believe that the more that you desire, the gap between the more that you desire and what God dreams for you is wider or narrower than the gap between what Elijah could conceive of and what he experienced at LAX that day? Let me ask you again. Is the gap between what you dream for you and what God dreams for you wider or smaller than what Elijah dreamed of, what Elijah could conceive of before he showed up at LAX that day? You see, it's easy for us to look at him and look down on him. How dare we in our first world arrogance compare ourselves, see ourselves as bigger or better or beyond somebody else who's finite just like you and me. The truth is, you just rewind the clock back several decades. The truth is hey, in our world, we experience the same thing that they experienced in Uganda a decade ago. And the truth is you have no idea. You actually can't ask. You don't know how to ask or imagine what's possible for you. So I just want to finish with a couple questions. What do you measure? What do you track? What are you striving for? Would you allow God to increase your vision and what's possible for you in life? Where have you quit imagining? Where have you quit believing in more? Where have you abandoned a dream of more, a desire for more, because you think it's past you, because you think you're damaged, because you think you screwed up, because you think God's not interested? Let me ask you, do you actually believe that immeasurably more is possible for you? See, some of us believe it's possible. We believe more is possible because God is able. We just don't believe that God's willing to do it for us. So here's the thing, just as we start today, here's what I want you to do. I want you to commit to praying something. I want you to commit as we start this series to praying something. And this prayer won't change things probably in your life, but I believe this prayer will change you. That's why we pray. It's not to change God. We pray to change us. Here's the prayer. The prayer is, God, help me to look beyond what I can measure and believe that because of you, immeasurably more is possible for me. God, help me in my marriage. Help me in my career. Help me in my finances. Help me in my life and in my family. Help me in all of the things I chase and strive after. Help me to believe. Help me to look beyond what I'm capable of what I can conceive of what I can accomplish, and to believe that because of you, immeasurably more is possible for me. Now today, if you're here and somebody invited you and you wouldn't consider yourself a Jesus follower, here's the thing. What if you came to the end? What if you came to the end of your life or the end of your days only to realize that the more that you chase after, was actually incredibly less than what the God of the universe, a God who wants you to call him Father, is dreaming for you, that he wants to lead you toward. Over the next several weeks, we're gonna talk about what it is to place your faith in and to allow this God to lead you, the path towards this immeasurably more. But here's my hope today. My hope is that we would all look up and that we would see a heavenly Father looking down on us, looking at us the way we look at our kids. The way we look at our kids when we think, if you could see you the way I see you, if you could look at you and you could recognize how much I'm for you and what's possible for me, with me, you would dream for so much more in your life. And that's my prayer, is that you would look up to a God who has infinite resources looking down on you going, I dream more for you, and more is possible. Not because you're able, not because you can do it, not because you can muster it up, not because I'm gonna bring connections to your life, but because I am able on your behalf. Let me pray for you. God, thank you today. Thank you for this truth. I pray that you would expand our imagination, expand our hearts, expand our faith, expand our trust. I pray for somebody who's here today who's just the whole time, they've just been thinking, yeah, but. I pray that you would remove all of our yeah buts. And what you would do is you would begin to give us vision, begin to give us a faith, begin to give us hope and a trust in you to lead us so far beyond what we ever imagined was possible for us in this life and the life to come. We trust in you today. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thanks so much for being here with us today as we kicked off our series. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.